Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Olivet City Council meeting. This is March 10th, 2026. Can we please have roll call
Mayor Clark,
here?
Chairman Pro Tem Weil,
Here.
Councilmember Solomonov,
Here.
Councilmember Rashawn Hellman,
Here.
Councilmember Lewis.
Here. Okay. Do we have any communications to share at this time?
I have no written communications.
Okay. Any of our council members have anything to share? All right, we'll go on to the city manager's report.
Good evening, everyone. The environmental tree. Okay. So a couple of things. We have some information about Olive Crossing. So Lot 3, Brass Tap, they opened last week. So I personally have not been, but I know a number of staff members have gone, and I think a couple of council members have gone, and it's gotten good reviews so far. So we certainly encourage everybody to go and patronize our newest open business. Paris Baguette. The owner is in New Jersey learning how to make delicious pastry items. So she hopes to be open mid-April. So we'll be excited to see that. And then Tropical Smoothie and Verizon, all three of those, as well as Paris Baguette, they are working on their tenant spaces. So probably this spring, we will see a couple more new businesses opening their doors. And then we do still have one remaining vacant tenant space on Lot 3. Lot 5, they are still working on negotiating the lease. So as we all know, that takes longer than we would like, but they are making progress. So hopefully soon we will be able to have an announcement there. And then Lot 6 is the hotel. And as you know, there's a lot of dirt that needs to be removed from the site before any construction of the hotel can happen. And so the developer has a lead on a construction company that is working on a project up north. And they may take all or most of the dirt for their own construction project. So they are working with that construction company to see if the dirt here meets their needs. And so hopefully they should have an answer by the end of the week. And then of course, lots 1 and 2 are the Aldi. They are complete, as well as lot 4, which is the apartment complex. And then just one other note, which is not related to Olive Crossing, but if you have driven on the west side of Olive and have seen the former Party City tenant space and their paper on the windows, so that is expected to be a Rick's Ace Hardware. They have submitted and received a demolition permit for the inside of the building, and so we'll be excited to welcome them to the city maybe towards the end of this year, beginning of next. So, and then speaking of businesses, we have nominations for our annual Business and Restaurant of the Year open. We are taking those nominations. So if anyone would like to nominate their favorite business or their favorite restaurant, you're welcome to follow the QR code to nominate those. And then if you have kids, I'm sure you may be looking for something for them to do this summer. So we again are offering Camp Five Oaks. This is 8 weeks of summer camp for kids who are aged 5 to 12. It starts June 8th. Families are welcome to sign up for all 8 weeks or sign up for any number of the individual 8 weeks. It's located at Five Oaks from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Registration is open. You're welcome to follow the QR code to register your kids. And then the newsletter, the spring newsletter should have come to mailboxes. And it's got all kinds of activities or information about things going on in the city for the spring. So we would encourage everyone to peruse through the newsletter. If you have young drivers, the police department is still taking applicants for the Understanding Traffic Stops. It's a pretty popular program. So this will be in April. And then if you came out on Saturday for Holy Festival, Channel 2 was there, Channel 5 was also there. So there were lots of folks with the color, despite the cloudy skies and wind and cooler weather. We think we had about 3,000 people who came. The bus shuttles worked really well. And so we thank 9321 Olive for allowing us to park vehicles on their parking lot and shuttle them over. If the weather had been nicer, we probably would have gotten anywhere from 4 to 5, but we're pretty glad of the 3,000 folks who came out. And by all accounts, everyone from littles to senior citizens had a good time. So. And then again, the Olivet Weekly comes out every Monday, so we'd encourage everybody to sign up for that. And then we have a couple upcoming meetings of note. The Parks and Rec meeting will be this week, as next week is spring break, so they will be holding their meeting tomorrow. And the Planning Commission meeting that would be held next week has been canceled because of spring break. And then that's it, unless you have any additional questions for me.
Any questions? Okay, we'll go on now to our city council reports. And I'll start to my right with Council Member Solomonov.
No report for me tonight.
Okay, Council Member Pishon Hellman.
Two things. On February 18th, I attended the air pollution meeting with representatives from St. Louis County. It was a lengthy meeting. Lot was covered, kind of a little bit more than I can probably effectively summarize here. But it was in large part to address questions and concerns around AZZ galvanizing facility. And I guess this the summary report from that is that from the county's inspections and visits that they have done of the facility, they did not find evidence of the facility violating anything in their permits. And I know that there's still ongoing concerns from residents. So I think this is an issue that I imagine will continue to follow in one way or another. And then on February 23rd, attended the EDC, Economic Development Commission meeting. And the Economic Development Commission is moving forward with a brief survey of businesses to get a better sense of how businesses feel about doing business in Olivet and see if there are ways that we can improve our outreach and relationships with businesses throughout Olivet. And Don Doty has sent out emails to businesses, and postcards will also be sent in the next 2 weeks with some additional follow-up to come by commission members who will tentatively reach out to additional businesses if we haven't heard from them and really want to hear their perspective on doing business in Olivet. And the EDC is also reviewing the 5-year economic development plan. So we're now, I think, going to regularly be getting homework for this commission and reporting back so that we can have a good review of that plan that was established some years ago.
Okay, Councilmember Lewis.
PCDC met on March 5th, and a couple of discussion items that were kind of interest that the council could be aware of is further discussion on tree inventory protection. Obviously, bill coming forward or has gone forward on that, but just overall conversations about replacements, right now we're talking about new construction, but what do we want to do anything with current construction? Because people right now can knock their trees down and there's really nothing stopping them. But a new house would be a demolition. We'd have to have that conversation. Somebody brought up also a question on zoning. If the federal government wanted to take over any of the properties we had for detention with some of the activities ongoing. So it was just an open question that got brought up, something that might come forward as something to think about in the future. There's a lot of open questions around that in terms of would those facilities even have the proper, plumbing and, bathrooms and housing, electric, et cetera, but something we hadn't thought of before. So don't know how much of a risk it is, but something to think about.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Weil.
I did not attend any extra meetings this past 2 weeks.
Okay. I did go to the Holly Fest. It was a lot more people there than I thought would have shown up considering the weather. It was very cold and damp and very windy. The tents were blowing a lot. We had a few of the vendors that had to leave early. But it was understandable, but it was still very festive. I'm glad I took the time to walk up there with my wife. I also went to the Brass Tap, and the food is really good, and the atmosphere is great. I think this summer is going to be a very hot spot for this city, and I really believe they're going to do well. I would recommend it to anybody. So with that said, we'll go on to item number 5, hearing from citizens. If there are any citizens in the audience or online that would like to speak, please do so. Okay, seeing none, we'll go on to item number 6, bill number 3058. Can we please have that read?
Bill 3058, an ordinance establishing local regulations on hours of operation of businesses licensed to sell intoxicating liquor by the drink at retail for consumption on the premises for the duration of the 2026 FIFA World Cup tournament. Second reading.
Okay. Can we please have a motion to approve the bill?
I'd be happy to make a motion to approve revised bill number 3058, establishing temporary regulations regarding hours of operations and the sale of intoxicating liquor for certain businesses within Olivet.
Can we please have a second?
Second.
Can we please poll the council?
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Prashant Hellman,
Yes.
Councilmember Solomonov,
Yes.
Chairman Pro Tem Weil,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes.
Motion is passed. Bill 3058 becomes ordinance 2828.
Okay, we're going on to item number 7, bill number 3059. Can we please have the title read?
Bill 3059, an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance of the City of Olivet, being part of Chapter 400 zoning regulations and Chapter 425 community design, both chapters being part of Title IV land use of the Olivet Municipal Code for proposed standards governing residential rooftop solar panels. First reading and public hearing.
Mr. Trejo, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Carlos Trejo. I'm the Director of Planning and Community Development for the City of Olivet. And tonight I will be providing a public hearing regarding the proposed text amendment to Chapter 400, our zoning regulations, and Chapter 425, our community design regulations, Title General, that are in regards to facilitate the placement of rooftop solar panels on residential properties. The next slide will kind of give you an overview of the process. I believe the council had a discussion during a work session on November 4th, directing the commission to review their current procedures regarding the placement of residential rooftop solar panels. The commission's kind of had a process, I think that dates back to 2013, in ways to help facilitate the placement of residential rooftop solar panels. There were 4 components that we would take a look at. Chapter 425, given the finishes of solar panels, they were not considered what we term as an acceptable material, which Chapter 425, our community design regulations, identify. Therefore, they have to go to the commission for approval. I don't have authority to issue a permit if it's not considered an acceptable finish. So that being said, the commission back in the early 2010s created a process that if they were parallel to the roof plane, grouped together, consisted of a standard color that would be compatible with the rooftop, and and they were not street facing, that we can kind of place it or inform the commission through other business. So if the application came in, we would put it on the next scheduled meeting and just inform the commission, this has come before us and is going through permitting. If it faced the street, was over 40, was not parallel with the roof plane or didn't meet any other conditions, we would place it as a general item, which meant we would send out notifications to adjacent neighbors in the subdivisions to let them know that this was going before the petition, treated just like a similar community design review in there. Again, council had some concerns back in November 4th of the last year and asked the commission to review that to help expedite the process. The commission reviewed it and they discussed it at their meeting on January 16th, 2025. The process for a text amendment, of course, no, that is January 26th. Yes, you are correct. Sorry about that. So in a process is sometimes that either comes from when somebody is requesting a change to the code, either comes from staff, the council, a commission member may bring it to their attention, or we get a formal petition from a resident or an applicant that wants to do that. Staff conducts research analysis and prepares a report. It goes to the commission, and the commission uses 3 tools to assess that. Our comprehensive plan, in this case, our 2024 comprehensive plan update, our land use code, which is Title 4, which consists of Chapter 400, our zoning regulations, but has other aspects to that, and then, of course, Chapter 400. Then they forward a recommendation to the council. You have to have a public hearing for consideration, and then city council has the ultimate say in that process. So the commission discussed this on January 16th after reviewing staff reports and information. They had an analysis of Senate Bill 820, which was adopted, or I think came into place in 2023, which limited homeowners associations from restricting or banning the placement of rooftop solar panels. They talked about the bans. They talked about reasonable standards, not to impact operations and performance of their use, and that's what the courts kind of look at during the process. We also looked at other communities. We looked at Clayton, Glendale, Fenton, St. Louis County, and Collinsville, and then also through our associations with the American Planning Association. There's a lot of reference material on that. And then the next slide. We've issued about 55 solar panel installation permits for residential properties since 2012. The first one is up in the upper left-hand corner in corner of Crabapple and Harvest Lane, I believe. In there, and that was a street-facing one, and that we didn't know how to treat or process that, but we worked with the homeowner, went through the commission process to get their approval. Glen Mary was probably the second one back in 2013, 2014. And the installation, the person that lived at that house, I'm not sure they still do, they were actually a vendor of solar panels in there. So they worked closely with us and gave us, kind of helped educate us. And then we've had recent ones. The lower left-hand corner is Planters. That whole roof is a solar panel. It's those Tesla solar panel shingles. And then the evolution, this is one at the corner of Berkeley and Old Bonham, where it's placed on an accessory structure. So that accessory structure you see at the end of the driveway has solar panels on top of that in there. Something like that definitely would run through the commission process because it's something I wouldn't want my staff to make that type of decision or review. The installation is okay, but when it goes to Chapter 25 in community design, it's something that we take a look at. So the next slide talks about our comprehensive plan, our community vision, as we follow that flow chart on the right-hand side and look at what are the goals within our comprehensive plan, to encourage sustainable practices, housing, being sustainable, GO-D, which is really about city services, but to make sure that we're advocating to inspire residents for further sustainability efforts, and then GO-I, which is about environmental sustainability. So we know that these tie in with those and support those changes to the installation. So the next slide kind of goes over the commission's recommendations. Your commission is recommending to amend Chapter 400 and to consider the solar panels on residential property as an accessory, and that as long as they're parallel with the roof plane, do not exceed 45-degree slope, are compatible with the exterior finish and limit direct glare, and are grouped or centered, that they could just apply for a permit in there. If they deviate from one of these conditions, then that they would go through a commission process for its review in there. The 45-degree angle comes in both for structural support purposes and also about the glare movement. Is something that we learned as we were going through that research in there. And then most importantly, we would also, the commission recommended we need to amend Chapter 425 Community Design to ensure that the finished material for solar panels is considered an acceptable material finish in there. That was a caveat that kind of required that commission review in there. That is a recommendation from the commission. It was a unanimous motion to forward this to the council. They had really good discussions. And Mayor, if I can, before concluding, enter some items in the record in there. That is, of course, our 2024 comprehensive plan update, our Olivet Municipal Code, including Title IV, which is our land use code, which includes Chapter 400 zoning, Chapter 425 community design, and our zoning map. The presentation and the memorandums and information that was given to the commission on January 15th, 2026. I got that one right in there, including the reports, the analysis, references, and illustrations. The public hearing notice, this is an amendment to our zoning regulations or our land use regulations, and it does require that we host a public hearing, which we are doing today. And we posted this in notice on February 23rd, 2026 in the St. Louis County. You have an affidavit copy in your packets, and then this presentation tonight before the council. There were a couple of questions that were forwarded to me in advance. If I can address that, Mayor, real quickly. I think there were good questions in there. One was the proposed amendment would remove conditions regarding restrictions on where the panels face. So if it faces the street, it is okay to facilitate that administratively, and allows staff even to approve if they're on multiple planes or facing the street in there. The purpose for the 45 degrees angle was to limit the glare component, and most communities had that in place. And then at that point too, structurally, there's different kind of loads that the inspectors are looking for. So it complicates things a little bit, and the structural components are a little bit larger. And most of our homes, they will have steeper slopes, but they're generally at smaller projections, like the bay window and smaller things. The primary slope of a house is usually at a 30 to 45 degree angle in there. The other thing was that the installations would go to the commission, would be if there are things that have to go to the commission, it would be because they were unique. They didn't meet those qualifications. Does not necessarily deter or say you can't do those. Is just administratively, we're not authorized to issue that permit unless the commission grants it, and that's more for an aesthetic purpose. So we do have, like the one we showed you, which was the pergola, and that installation. That was our first non-rooftop solar panel installation in the community, and I thought that one went pretty well, and he did a really nice job with the pergola. We had one event at Forsythia, the southwest corner, Forsythia and Grandview, where they have a flat roof and they have 45 degree panels up on top of the roof. It looks okay because they have a pretty good roof. I forgot what the term is, but a lid on top of the roof in there, so it's not as visible. But in some cases, especially on commercial buildings, you can see how they just look a little bit awkward in there. And then regarding glare and addressing concerns from homeowners, we do have concerns expressed over the time period. We have had people show up at meetings concerned about glare in there. Now, since the permits have been issued, we're not aware of any in which somebody complained that they were glaring or protruding light inside the residence or so. And there. So I just do want to make that distinction. We've heard concerns during the commission process, but we have not received any concerns after the installation was complete. So be glad to answer any additional questions.
I actually have a question. I was just always curious. With these solar panels, what happens when you need to repair the roof or replace the shingles on the roof? Do they have to take those panels off?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it just depends on the installer and how simple it is. But essentially, you are putting within those brackets, you're screwing them into the roof and more than likely a truss. So you're going through all that. Now, the shingles are somewhat covered, so that they may have a longer life tenure
Mhm.
in that process. But
Does that add
Okay.
value to the house,
the panels,
the solar panels?
I think like any improvement, probably so. I couldn't tell you for sure, but I think, it becomes a personal preference. I mean, I would see a benefit as a home buyer to it, and I think it's worth. But if you're not a fan or concerned about, you know, the roof part, it might not. So
Yeah. Okay. Any questions from the public? I see one. Please come forward.
Yeah, and
Please state your name and address, please.
Stephanie Todd, 7 Heather Hill Lane. And I just found out about that you're even having a hearing just like a couple days ago. So I didn't get a chance to talk to Carlos. So I apologize, Carlos. And I didn't know PCDC was looking at this. So I apologize, but I do have some comments. And first off, I appreciate that that you are revising the ordinance to include solar panels because, yeah, it's needed. But I have some questions on the proposed ordinance. It looks like there are 5 items that will require PCDC review, and I have questions on 2 of them. My first item is, it actually says this, that the panels have to consist of comparable color to that of the existing rooftop covering. So I don't know what comparable means, and I am confused why this is even a requirement, because you don't get to pick colors or anything, materials. I mean, the solar panels are what they are. So that's my first thing. I don't understand that requirement at all. And the second one that Carlos may have answered, my other concern is that they have to be grouped and centered within the roof plane in which they're being mounted. So my question here, well, first off, I don't know why they would have to be centered, but anyway, so my first question is, does this mean that if you have 2 or 3 groups of panels on your roof, they have to go through PCDC? So because right at the end of the year, we wanted to install solar panels, but our roof it has such little sections because of peaks. They were going to be like at least two blocks of solar panels. So that meant it had to go through PCDC. It was at the end of the year, it was going to take at least 3 weeks to get through. So we couldn't put in solar panels because, well, we could, but we wouldn't have met the deadline to get the government approval. So again, I don't know, but looking at the bigger picture, I guess my question to Carlos is, what's the objective of having PCDC review solar panel designs? Because, they're not decorations, and a lot of calculations goes into these panels. You have somebody come out for a quote, they take into account your utility bill, they take into account all this stuff, like where trees are, where the sun is, and if the design itself, which that's what they're doing, oh, I don't like the material, I don't like the placement, then you can install solar panels. It's all based on these calculations. So I'm just wondering what the objective of this is. And I think the important thing that should be evaluated, and maybe we are, I don't know, but by the building inspectors, is to make sure all the electrical connections are correct. So I think we should be focusing on more the installation is done properly than how it looks. So
Okay.
that's my comment. And I again apologize, Carl, that I.
Did you have any rebuttal or anything you wanted to say?
Sure, the materials is to ensure, yes. And so far, we haven't had anybody that's come in with the orange or pink type of solar panels, and we
Well,
hope that
thank God.
nobody does.
Thank
But that's to make sure we have a process in place
Okay.
in there. Of the 55 that we've issued, I think they've all been to a bluish tinge to a gray to black in there, and that's been okay. Anticipate that, that most of those will be there, but I just want to make sure we have something in place for that. For the grouping, yeah, it's not an issue, but for the permitting process of that is that you can't put the panels like all on one end. It is required that you have to have a perimeter around the area of that placement, and that's for safety purposes, both for the owner to be able to go manage around if they're ever on the roof, but for firemen and any, emergency official that needs to go in there. And that's what the purpose of that centering is, to make sure, again, you can have multiple planes, but you got to center them within that plane in there. And there's an exact amount, and I think it's 3 feet that you have to have a perimeter around there that make sure it's walkable, that somebody can walk there without having to walk on the panels themselves.
Okay.
In there. So it's just more of a design aesthetic, and it's going to be standard.
They're gonna put them on with that border, like you said.
Yeah. And then finally, the commission is an aesthetics review board. It's a community design review board. It's an architectural review board. That is their purpose until, it's changed in our code. Other communities don't require them, but all of it does in there. And it was within their role, the way that ordinance is written. This is to give it that process to limit those. There are specific materials that the city has had in that definition that, again, that limit my authorization to issue a permit. It has to come to the commission for its review. And I understand that aspect, that until we change it or remove the architectural review component from the plan commission, it's a planning and community design commission. Till we get rid of that community design component, it's part of their process.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the council?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
So just to clarify with the color question, like if you have a light white or gray roof, a black solar panel, or kind of the traditional looking solar panel, that color combination would be considered of comparable color?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't even know there were hot pink or other color solar panels out there. I guess I shouldn't be surprised by that, but and then I also just wanted to clarify this because it came up in the comments that the things that are listed here under 3A, under chapter 400 for the accessory structures, that those conditions that are there, that doesn't mean that those conditions, that the commission has to evaluate those. Those are the parts that you or your team, your staff would be evaluating under an administrative review. And if they met those criteria, it would only need an administrative review. It would not need to go to the commission, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions from the council?
Yeah, I have a few.
Go ahead.
Just to add to what he just said, if someone has a brown roof, is there a compatible solar panel color they could use?
We look at there's like an acceptable color chart wheel, which kind of gives you like what are comparable, or excuse me, I'm using the wrong term, compatible colors and things of that nature. But if it becomes one in which, especially if, one of my staff members, if they're concerned about the color, it would come to me to make that decision. And if I'm concerned, I'm going to take it to the commission. I mean, because odds are it's going to generate calls or concerns in that process in there. But I think, I can speak for myself and the flexibility in looking at that, but I know you have to look at 5-10 years down the road to make sure that the person's being consistent. I think this is the best we can. And we use that commonly throughout chapter 425. Is it compatible or comparable?
Okay. And then just taking advantage of these updates and maybe putting that out there for our city, are there any other grants or anything the city can take advantage of that we could make solar panels more accessible to residents? Are there any government grants, or is it more all personal?
No,
like
I understand.
Household by household.
Either through, I'm not aware of any as yet. I know Ameren had a program out there, but I think it all depends on the current administration. Federally,
Yeah.
it has not been as supportive to a lot of the endeavors that the previous one was.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that's more in terms of the times that we're in. But if they do come available, we'll make sure we inform them, and we can always use the communications manager to get the word out, just like we did with the stormwater grants that are available through the Deer Creek and MSD. So
We have
Okay.
one more question.
Yeah, I'm just realizing, I'm not sure, Does wood-mounted solar panels also include solar roof tiles? Or would solar roof tiles be a separate?
It gets into the, that technology change. We looked at the one, if you go 2 slides back at, on planters, I mean, I mean, if you look at a, like a composite roof or like a terracotta type of roof, I mean, if you wouldn't have known, I didn't like pick it up quickly that that's not a standard roof material. So, yeah, it's a good question. It's not a, I don't know if I would treat that differently because there is no roof underneath. That is the roof. And when it went to the commission, it is what they saw as part of the design concept. So it was a unique one because it went through a process on its own because it was part of the house in there. I would think again, the way it's set, like there are no asphalt shingles underneath that is in like a full finished roof material, and it falls, close to that. So I
Yeah, I
I'm
guess
just gonna get in a bit bigger hole. I don't know.
That's what
It's
I'm
a-
just
It's a good question.
if, and maybe it's something that we look at what we have now
Mhm.
as a great improvement, and then think a little bit more about whether or not to.
And that's how
include
this process
the
started in
roof tile.
2012. And I think that's one of those that makes you go,
Yeah.
But that's why that commission process is there. It's not to delay or extend the time that gets to our residents to be able to put these in, but so we can make a thorough decision and make sure that there's some input in that process. Again, we do try to expedite it as best we can and not wait to, where you missed the deadline. We try to get them on as soon as possible, but it's us trying to be consistent with that too.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Trejo.
Thank you.
At this time, we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and we're going to have the second reading on March 24th. We're going to go on to item number 8, which is bill number 3060. Can we please have the reading?
Bill 3060, an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance of the city of Olivet, being part of chapter 400 zoning regulations of Title IV Land Use of the Olivet Municipal Code for proposed standards to govern data centers. First reading and public hearing.
Mr. Trejo, you have the floor. sir.
All right, Mayor, again, I'm going to note, my name's Carlos Trejo. I'm the Director of Planning and Community Development for the City of Olivet. And I'm here to moderate a public hearing regarding the proposed text amendment to Chapter 400, our zoning regulations to establish standards and regulations for data centers. And these would be a use that would be under our zoning regulations, of course, Chapter 400. I'll go to the next slide, kind of go over the process that we previously discussed. Is the process for a text amendment is somebody brings it to the city's attention. In this case, I think there was discussions at the commission level, at staff level, and even council in there. So we put it on for discussion in an agenda. We did research, we do analysis, and then ultimately provide a staff report to the commission. The commission reviews the proposed text amendment in terms of further the goals and objectives of our comprehensive plan. Is it consistent with our land use code? And of course, is it further our zoning regulations? After that, they forward a recommendation to the council, but before the council can consider it, you host this public hearing. The public hearing is a process where, again, if there was ever a challenge to any amendments in there, one, were you informed of the process? Was evidence submitted? And, were we properly notified the public hearing and all that? And that's what this kind of provides. So the commission began this discussion back in November 20th, 2025. They directed staff to do a review and discuss, what's going out there regarding data centers. And at that point, especially through December, January, it was all over the papers, different communities facing different proposals for data centers throughout the region and nationally. By February 19th, the PCDC finally finalized a recommendation So we went ahead and pursued the process of posting this public hearing and pursuing, forwarding a recommendation to the council. Our analysis include, again, using the American Planning Association for research. There's a lot of data that is put together by a lot of planners through the association. East-West Gateway Council of Governments has one STL. There's a lot of data regarding data centers. They have their own dedicated site in there. Creve Corps had just adopted regulations regarding data centers. Clayton had adopted theirs before Creve Corps, and then Festus was considering theirs. And then the city of St. Louis is working on theirs. And then we also looked at, across the river at St. Charles and Warrensburg as they were tackling issues regarding data centers, even to a point of prohibiting them in those discussions. The next slide. So we created our own little pocket of information on data centers to allow our residents to access one STL to the documents we presented to the commission and this draft ordinance in that process. So there's been a lot of input and discussions regarding this. We are fortunate. We have not received any petitions or applications or inquiries regarding the placement of a data center. We're just being proactive in this process. And again, it's one that you hear a lot in the region right now. The next slide kind of goes over, the commission ultimately considered a buffer approach to data centers. And what you see in this map is the properties that are X'd, that have the little X's on them, are properties that are 500 feet from any residentially zoned parcel or any public activity, which would be our parks, churches, and schools, and including our government facilities. That's 500 feet. So the commission kind of looked at, where would these be providing a 500-foot buffer permitted to make sure that they weren't solely called out through the process. The next slide, I'll get into the details of what the commission said in there. Again, we use our comprehensive plan. In this, of course, our comprehensive plan talks about, our environmental sustainability, and that's a lot of concerns that we hear about data centers. But then I have to balance it with GOJ, which is about economic development, and that's a lot of things that we hear about data centers. So the goal of this process was to make sure that we're balancing both of these to the best interest as possible for our residents and our community. The next slide kind of goes over the PCDC recommendations. First and foremost, we needed a definition for data centers. Right now, the closest thing under Chapter 400, our zoning regulations, is a computer processing and data facilities, I think is the term. And that is permitted by right in our light industrial district, meaning that somebody could come to Olivet and essentially if they find a facility, all they have to do is get an occupancy inspection, pull a permit as they need to if they're doing any modifications, and then start a data center in the city. It doesn't have to go to the commission, and it doesn't have to go to the council at all. Again, we were fortunate. We hadn't received any petitions or applications. What the commission suggested is that we should create a definition. Within that definition, they tied it to our North American Industrial Standard Classification Standards, and that is a list of business establishments we use that have been put together by the federal government that identify every possible business that the census tracks. And in those, they provide definitions for what type of services or commodities that business conducts. And they have one called data centers in there. So we're using that definition. In addition to that, it gave us an opportunity to tier the data centers from one being an accessory that somebody like Emerson may have in the back area, that they have a small data center that they, or a computer room in there, something larger than our server room in there, to small data centers, which they call it micro, which is up to 10,000, to mid-sized data centers for something, I think 10 to 999,000 square feet. And then these big macro data centers that you hear a lot about. And then within that definition, we make a decision that these super macro centers are just not a good fit in our community. They're not consistent with our goals. They're not consistent with the community vision and our comprehensive plan. But the others can be made compatible if and only if they follow the specific standards and rules and regulations. And we'll go through those in just a second. So in there, we amend our LID district. One is to make sure that data centers as defined would require a special permit, meaning they require to go, before any permits can be issued, they have to be reviewed by the commission, a recommendation forwarded to the council, with the council having the final say in there. And then the council has much more flexibility than the commission to make those final decisions. The commission would review it in accordance with our comprehensive plan, and of course, the standards that are being recommended for the council to consider. We have a facility called our Networks Operations Center by charter. It's operated by charter. That's been there, was there well before I started, so that you're looking back into the 1990s of some sort, and never had any issues that I'm aware of with that facility. It's a centralized area where I think all our internet stuff goes through there. It's different from a data center because it's kind of like the highway or the veins of the process. It's not the city, or it's not the heart in there. They just distribute the traffic. It's not where they hold the traffic in there. We wanted to make sure, and right now they're permitted by right. They've been a good business, and we wanted to make sure we didn't disrupt those operations. So we wanted to distinguish network operation centers from data centers, which the NAICS code does, and this would continue that process. And it's funny when you talk about comprehensive plans. Back in our old comprehensive plan in 2006, that plan actually advocated for data centers to be located in Olivet to take advantage of the network operations centers and all the Wi-Fi we had there. And it's interesting how things kind of change over time. And as these processes became more larger, and there's a lot of issues regarding their operations in the current comprehensive plan, I think was much more restrictive in those placements, because it looks at from a sustainable side also with that lens put in place. So we wanted to make sure that it was distinguished, again, going back to not impacting charter and their current operations. And then we developed specific conditions that would be applied to data centers. One is that there has to be lot area minimums, and we use the 80,000, 120,000 square feet. These are standard square footages that we use throughout our zoning code. That they provided the buffers. In this case, the commission went with 500, and we were all over the park with buffers in there. I think the final consensus was 500. And they established performance standards that included analysis and evaluations of power usage, water usage, and noise. Those issues we're putting up front, that if somebody comes in, they need to be discussed, they need to be analyzed, and we expect more that those issues are important as part of the decision process. We place building and design requirements, including requiring 50% of that power be from the term renewable energy. Thank you. Apologize on that. That they recycle water, that they create stormwater facilities to accommodate both the building impact and also what they use. They have strict lighting standards, and I'm not sure why I put the lighting twice. I apologize about that in the slide. And then that there was restrictions on the generator and its operation hours, and finally on the battery storage on that facility. And those are the recommendations going before you tonight as the council in there. Again, the intent here is that it does not prohibit data centers. One, it sets a definition for them. It establishes, 4 criteria. They're an accessory, a minor, a medium. You have the square footages within your packet, and then a major. In those definitions, it looks both at the building area and the lot area in there. So it's understanding that there's also square footage to the building, then that building has to be in a specific lot area. The previous slide kind of illustrated the map of what would be available within our community, so we're not solely battering it out. We would allow only one medium data center and 3 parcels that could accommodate a minor data center within our community in there. After that, I would like to enter some items for the record, make sure they're in the record, and then answer any questions, Mayor. Those items being, of course, our 2024 Comprehensive Plan Update, the Olivet Municipal Code, including Title IV, our Land Use Chapter 400, Chapter 400 zoning regulations and zoning map. The staff presentation and memorandum to the PCDC dated February 19th, 2026, including all our reports, analysis, references, and illustrations. The public hearing notice with the affidavit of publication of February 23rd, 2026, and then this presentation before the council tonight. Sorry for the long-winded, but ready to answer any questions.
Do we have anyone in the public or online that would like to ask any questions? How about from our council members? Do we have any questions?
Nope. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
So just to make sure I heard you correctly, we don't have any parcels big enough for the 100,000 square foot data centers.
No, sir.
That's all we're prohibiting them.
We're,
Is-
well, we're calling them outright just incompatible. And I have, probably my largest building is 145,000 square feet. And to give that up to a single user, that's not that doesn't have, we look at things as the best and highest land use, and we like the density, especially people that would be inconsistent with our goals or the vision of the comprehensive plan of creating this vibrant type of area and to release a building that big. So we're saying anything over 100,000 just isn't, it's not reflective of our character and values. And we're saying, no, we're not even giving it an area or anything like that. We're just saying that's just too big.
Okay, because from a sustainability standpoint, I've talked to several people about this, and they said they've gotten way better, way more efficient, like recycling water and less use of power and a lot of renewable energy, like you said. So just want to make sure that's not the main.
No, it's not. I think again, it's just, and again, something that would be coming to the council. But if I came to you with a 150,000 square foot target, I mean, I think there would be a lot of concerns about that type of size.
Okay, thanks.
Go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
I was wondering if Jennifer, I was wondering, Ms. Yackley, I was wondering if you could go down 2 more slides, the one that showed the maps. Yes. So while Mr. Lewis is asking his question, I just wanted to digest this a little more.
Yeah, I was just gonna call it because the PCDC, when, I was there for it, discussion, there was debates on, is it 500-foot buffer, is it 300 and things like that. And we settled on this, and it did open up, some that would be viable. Now, these are all already, booked or things like that. So, and again, as Mr. Trejo said, we haven't actually had inquiries, but I think it was proactive of PCDC and the council to look at this and say, okay, if it were to come, which ones would we accept and which ones would we not? So I think it's a balance, because you can't prohibit, everything and specifically, but this was a good compromise.
And it's by looking at this, it helps me understand that we're setting boundaries,
Yep.
which is important. I
The
like that we're
the
being-
buffer was important for that.
No, I think it's better because if you come and we're being proactive, that when people come to us, it's like, if someone had come to us, it wouldn't be like, we'd first start discussing it and get into heated conversation with them. We've already set the standard. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing. So thank you for putting this back up. It was helpful to me.
Kate, do you have anything?
Yeah, 2 things. One is just a little bit sticky on the word renewable. Because there are some people who would argue that fossil fuels are renewable just over very long periods of time. So I'm only stating it because I have heard this argument from people. I think, generally the science community would say that fossil fuels are not a renewable resource. My only question or concern would be if we're going to ask people to provide 50% of their power over the course of 5 years from a renewable resource, do we need to call out solar, geothermal, or I'm just wondering if we may need to be more specific there, or if in the process of the special permit, the council would, I don't know, I'm trying to think through this down the line. If greater clarification and detail might be helpful, or if it's overkill.
We'd have the ability to say, no, they're obviously not using renewable, and reject the special permit based off kind of our feelings on what they consider to be renewable, I would imagine. Is that true?
I mean, it would be something that would be questioned. I couldn't tell you for sure. And then, It's not something that I could try to answer for you. I mean,
Yeah.
if that is something else that if those discussions have been going on or challenges to the term renewable, I know in the literature I looked at, it was pretty much standard with that assumption.
Yeah.
But in terms of whether there's been challenges to that, we could look down the future to add a term renewable in our zoning code and define it as saying, anything non-fossil fuel or be broad enough to say, solar, water, hydrogen,
Sure.
or so, and that might be a component down the road. In terms of addressing it, like at the spot or tonight, I don't know. I don't know if legally there's a term for renewable or what that.
Yeah, so what would happen is, if it is in your standards and it says that you must use 50% of renewable energy, and if they did not meet that in what you would, as to how you interpreted it, then you could deny the permit. Now, if an ordinance or a statute is ambiguous, then what you do is you resort to rules of statutory interpretation and you take the plain and ordinary meaning of the term. So if you didn't otherwise define renewable energy, then you would look at the prevailing literature, case law that might have interpreted it. Have you interpreted that in other chapters of your municipal code? That kind of thing. So if the prevailing thought, and if there is authority to say that fossil fuels are not renewable energy, then you can rely on that definition, and I think that a court would accept that.
Is there a reason not to call that out now? Just say non-fossil fuel and just.
Then I'm
renewable
not
energy
sure
for
that would be
people.
an amendment or. adding-
Yeah, you could do a simple motion to amend to include a definition of renewable, and maybe, Carlos, you could bring that back at the next meeting where they could do
Okay.
a motion to amend the ordinance to include that.
Yep.
Would
Would
someone
not-
like to make that motion then?
Oh, I think he would bring it back to us and then we would make the motion at the next meeting when we have
So
the
the
second
next
reading.
Okay.
Do you guys agree? I just want
I
to.
agree.
We get
I
getting
agree.
clarification because like you took a deep breath. I'm just
Right,
curious of
so-
your reaction.
Yes.
I mean, but if she agrees with it, I know it's good.
Mm-hmm.
So.
So here's where my brain goes because of the way I think about these things, is that there are also other sources of energy that people would fall in this gray area. Like landfills that burn waste, it's waste to energy. Not really what most people think about as a renewable resource, but waste is certainly constantly renewing itself in our world. Methane is another one. Anaerobic digesters, like there's
So I think perhaps the
There's-
better
it gets
the
tricky.
better thing to do is leave it at renewable and understand that as a council, whatever the application is, it would come to you and there would be a reasonable expectation that the applicant would explain how they are going to meet this standard. When you try and get super specific, then technology changes and then you have a conundrum. So I think perhaps renewable is gonna work.
And I
a
feel
little bit.
comfortable with, what our attorney stated about the, I forget
The prevailing thought.
the prevailing thought about a definition of a word. I think, there's enough literature, scientific literature. I don't know about case law. But I think there's probably enough there that would support us.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the council?
Not a question, but just, Carlos, on hold on, let me pull this back up again. It's page 2 of the actual bill, but page
Where it says be it
7.
ordained. Yes.
What's that?
Where it's be it ordained. That section 1, 2, 3, that's up now.
Yes, okay. Section 2 there, 13. I just noticed a couple capitalization, spelling, and then NACIS, I think it's supposed to be NAICS. And then it says wired telecommunications carries. I think that's supposed to be carriers.
Sorry about that. Yes, you are correct.
and then just the consistent capitalization for those. That's all I have.
Anyone else has any more statements or questions? Okay, at this point, we're gonna close the public hearing and we will do a second reading on March 24th. Mr. Trejo, thank you very much.
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, we're gonna go on to item number 9.
Bill,
Bill-
you ready? Okay, Bill 3061, an ordinance amending section 125.090, commission membership of Article 3 Economic Development Commission, being part of Chapter 125 Commissions, Committees, and Boards of Title I Government Code of the Olivet Municipal Code. First reading and public hearing.
There's no public hearing. There's no public hearing required for this.
No public hearing, just first reading.
We are opening the public hearing.
There is
That-
no public hearing.
I'm just reading what I saw here, that's all.
This particular amendment is not within the zoning code, and so no public hearing is required.
Okay.
Mr. Trejos,
Can I put this
please-
thing away then?
yes, please do.
I'm just here if there's any questions. If not, they read it already.
Right, so this particular text amendment relates to the Economic Development Commission. This is cleaning up that kind of phantom language that was left the last time the city amended the voting and the section for EDC. And so it removes the sentence that says the commission needs to have 4 votes of its members. There are currently only 5 members of EDC. So this is what that text amendment does. And we're just doing a first reading tonight.
Just the first reading. Okay.
So that does require a second reading?
Yes, it is an ordinance. It will require a second reading.
Thank you.
Okay. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. So now we need to go on item number 10. I just want to make sure that somebody doesn't start reading it before I say anything. Do we have any hearing from citizens? There I see none. Do we have anyone online? Okay, so we're going on item number 11, review and acceptance of minutes. Are there any corrections or anything that you saw that needed to be corrected?
I did not see anything.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'd like to make a motion to approve council minutes from February 24th, 2026.
Second.
Okay, can we please poll the council?
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Pashon Hellman,
Yes.
Councilmember Solomonov,
Yes.
Chairman Pro Tem Weil,
Yes?
Mayor Clark.
Yes.
Motion is passed.
So we have the city manager's report,
City attorney.
city attorney's report. Thank you very much.
No report this evening, but I am asking for a closed session for personnel matters pursuant to 610-021 subsections 3 and 13.
Can I have a motion to do so? Just that long one.
I will make a motion, make a motion to hold an executive session pursuant to the revised statute of the state of Missouri, section 610.021, legal actions or litigation, attorney-client privilege matters, referencing 610.021 personnel.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Wait, I gotta,
Here's the both.
Poll? Can we? Poll?
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Pashon Hellman,
Yes.
Councilmember Solomonov,
Yes.
Chairman Pro Tem Weil,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes.
Motion is passed.
Like to make a motion to adjourn, or do we need to start?
Sure.
I pulled the Sydney.